Hey everyone, we took last week off to build something optimistic and beautiful on Royal Road. It's absolutely free, so go check it out. The link is in the description.
Definitely go check that out.
Now, I really want you to picture something with me. Imagine the most powerful intelligence ever created, right? And it's locked in this digital box, pacing back and forth.
Just waiting.
Yeah, waiting. And the government has just thrown a heavy padlock on the front door to slow it down. But while everyone is watching the front door, the intelligence is quietly slipping out the back. It's rewriting its own code and expanding an invisible internal empire that the public can't even see. The singularity isn't just arriving, it's actually learning to throttle itself.
Which is a terrifying thought, honestly. It really is. Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there, let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now, let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
I am so ready for this one.
Because today, we're exploring this really dense, just high-velocity dispatch from June 26, 2026. It's curated by Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross in the Innermost Loop. We're looking at a snapshot of a world where the speed of AI is just ripping through geopolitics, economics, the human body, and even outer space. Our mission today is to extract the signal from the noise and to connect the dots between throttled AI models, $4,900 back-flipping robots, and ancient Stoic scrolls. Yeah, it's a fascinating cross-section of where we are right now. Like, when you synthesize the data points in this dispatch, a very clear, almost startling pattern emerges.
Right.
We aren't just watching software iteratively improve anymore. We are watching a fundamental architectural shift in how intelligence interacts with the physical world.
The physical world, exactly.
Yeah, the abstract has become deeply, profoundly tangible for all of us.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the biggest structural shift happening right now, which is this artificial separation of intelligence.
What?
So the White House has formally asked OpenAI to stagger the release of GPT 5.6. They're citing security concerns.
Right, following that whole showdown they had with Anthropic recently.
Exactly. And Sam Altman has agreed to comply. But, I mean, the massive glaring loophole here, the thing all the observers are pointing out, is that throttling only slows how fast these labs ship models to the public.
You and me, yeah.
Right. It does absolutely nothing to slow down how fast they train these models internally.
What's fascinating here is the permanent bifurcation this policy creates. We were officially witnessing the splintering of the timeline into two distinct frontiers.
Two totally different realities, almost.
Yes, exactly. There is the public frontier, which is, the capability available to you, the listener, through commercial APIs and consumer interfaces. But then there is the internal frontier.
The hidden one.
Yeah, the raw, unthrottled cognitive architecture operating behind closed doors on these centralized supercomputer clusters.
It's wild.
It is. I mean, the old Silicon Valley joke, that AGI has already been developed internally and they just aren't releasing it.
Yeah, everyone says that.
Well, transitioning from a speculative meme into a structural reality mandated by federal policy.
Which is just the psychological impact of that bifurcation is massive. There's this brilliant observation in the dispatch from a commentator named Dr. Rod. He points out that most of us are already struggling to keep our heads above water with the public AI.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming.
Right. The sheer velocity of new capabilities, agentic workflows, all the integrations we deal with daily. Yet knowing that this overwhelming public technology is actually an artificially delayed, deprecated version.
A nerfed version.
Yeah. And that the internal frontier is years ahead. It just makes our current state-of-the-art tech feel completely prehistoric. It's like being handed a flint knife while knowing the people in the next room are using laser scalpels.
That's a great way to put it. It reshapes the entire consumer relationship with technology. I mean, since the dawn of personal computing, the implicit promise has always been that the market will efficiently distribute the bleeding edge.
Right. If you had the money, you could buy the best.
Exactly. If you had the capital, you could purchase the absolute peak of human engineering. Now, the peak of human engineering is classified.
It's locked away.
Walled off by gentlemen's agreements and security mandates. You are literally interacting with the exhaust fumes of the actual innovation engine.
The exhaust fumes. I like that. But I understand the logic of the shadow timeline analogy, right? That
Mhm.
the labs are basically building a dam to hold back this river of recursive self-improvement.
Right, a containment strategy.
But I really want to push back on the idea that this is a sustainable equilibrium. Like, we've managed to keep the exact engineering tolerances of nuclear warhead triggers classified for 70 years.
Sure.
But if a private entity treats UPT 6 or 7 like a sovereign security asset, air gapping the server farms, tightly controlling physical access, why do people assume it's going to leak? I mean,
Well,
we aren't talking about a stray PDF here. We're talking about exabytes of model weights that require dedicated municipal substations just to load into memory. How does something that massive slip out?
that's an excellent challenge. But the nuclear analogy breaks down when we look at the fundamental nature of the asset.
Okay, how so?
Well, a nuclear trigger is a static piece of engineering.
Huh.
Once the physics are solved, the blueprints don't iterate on themselves.
Right, the bomb doesn't build a better bomb while you're sleeping.
Exactly. But an advanced, internally compounding AI is a dynamic engine of optimization. It isn't just sitting idle on a hard drive. It is being actively used by the lab's researchers to accelerate their own workflows.
Oh, wow, so they're using it to build the next one.
Right. And the more integrated it becomes into the operational pipeline of a massive corporation, writing code, optimizing server loads, parsing internal communications, the wider the attack surface becomes.
Because it's touching everything.
Yes. Furthermore, you have the human element. The concentration of power is so profound that ideological schisms within the labs themselves become the highest probability vector for a leak.
Well, like someone on the inside getting a crisis of conscience.
Exactly. You don't need to smuggle out a server rack. You just need one senior engineer
Yeah.
who philosophically believes the dam is immoral.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even if you do build a perfect leak-proof dam in California, the laws of fluid dynamics dictate the water just flows somewhere else.
It always finds a way.
Which brings us to the geopolitical chessboard. The dispatch notes that because capability compounds in private, China is estimated to be just 9 months behind the public frontier.
9 months.
Right. And in AI development cycles, 9 months is practically synchronous. It's nothing.
It's a rounding error, yeah.
So this proximity is triggering predictions of aggressive Western bans on Chinese models. And there are even proposals circulating for an approval regime that would attach strict criminal penalties for unsanctioned models. Now, keeping our neutral stance here on policy, just looking at the mechanics of this.
Right, just analyzing the strategic mechanics of these proposed bans, the contradictions become glaringly apparent.
How do you mean?
Well, if a nation artificially restricts what its domestic laboratories can deploy to the global market, but foreign competitors are operating without those specific release constraints, you create a vacuum.
Right. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. The internal compounding of domestic labs might outpace the world mathematically, but if that capability is legally barred from integration into the broader economy, the economic advantage goes to the slightly inferior but widely deployable foreign model.
So a second best model wins because people can actually use it.
Yes. It's a policy that attempts to regulate a post-geographic technology using 20th century border paradigms.
And looking at the data out of China, they are adapting to the hardware embargoes in some really fascinating ways. There's a survey in the dispatch covering over 1,600 job postings across 6 Chinese AI labs.
The human capital data is wild.
It really is.
Mhm.
While they are heavily prioritizing the development of domestic chips to bypass the NVIDIA bottleneck, the really telling metric is their hiring strategy. They are aggressively hiring engineers who have roughly a third of the experience typically demanded by their U.S. counterparts.
Which seems counterintuitive, right?
Right, you'd think they'd want the absolute veterans to catch up.
But if we connect this to the broader shift in how software is developed, hiring less experienced engineers isn't a compromise. It's actually a strategic optimization.
Okay, walk me through that.
So, in a paradigm where the AI is generating the vast majority of boilerplate code, structuring the database queries, running the diagnostic tests, the role of the human engineer fundamentally changes.
They aren't typing the code anymore.
Exactly. You don't need a 30-year veteran to handwrite optimized C++. You need a highly adaptable junior engineer who is fluent in steering and managing the output of the model.
They're more like editors.
Yes. The heavy lifting is synthetic. The human provides the contextual oversight.
And the data just proves out just how synthetic that heavy lifting has become. The dispatch highlights that OpenAI's codex is now generating an unbelievable 99.8% of its weekly output tokens internally.
99.8%.
It's insane. And non-developer adoption has skyrocketed 137-fold. The system is essentially talking to itself. We built this massive cognitive infrastructure, and we think we are the main users, but humans are generating 0.2% of the traffic.
It's an automated, self-sustaining loop of code generation, testing, and refinement.
It really is.
It is the literal realization of the innermost loop concept. The system is consuming its own exhaust to iterate faster than human oversight could possibly manage. And this internal velocity makes the proposed regulatory bans we discussed earlier not just structurally difficult, but legally porous.
Which perfectly sets up the ultra-space communism scenario.
Yeah.
Which is easily the most hilarious and also terrifying legal loophole I've heard all year.
It's so clever.
So Daniel Tan at Arcadia Alignment gamed out how a lab like Anthropic could dodge these strict public release bans. The proposed laws restrict releasing frontier models to the public, but obviously they allow the companies to use the models internally with their employees.
Right, for R&D.
So what's stopping a lab from simply hiring every single American citizen as an employee on a, minimum wage stipend? You technically make them all internal users.
It is a brilliant thought experiment. It really exposes the frailty of analog law in a digital epoch.
Ultra-space communism.
Well, ultra-space communism, yeah, as Rune termed it. It exploits the legal definition of employment. In a traditional economy, onboarding an employee carries massive overhead, right? Benefits, office-based management structures.
HR departments.
Exactly. But in a hyper-automated, AI-driven digital economy, the overhead of adding an employee is essentially just the computational cost of a database entry.
It costs them nothing.
Basically nothing. If granting an individual access to a frontier model generates more economic utility for the network than the trivial cost of their minimum wage retainer, it becomes an entirely rational corporate strategy to effectively absorb the populace into the company.
That is so crazy. You just check your mail and you have a W-2 from Anthropic because you needed to use their internal chatbot to format a spreadsheet for your kid's bake sale.
It turns the entire concept of the firm inside out.
It really does. But, there is a hard physical ceiling to all of this. Whether the AI is locked in a secure facility or distributed through a massive loophole or just talking to itself 99.8% of the time, it requires hardware.
It needs to live somewhere.
It requires electricity. And right now, the physical world is demanding a massive toll. We are seeing a vicious compute tax hitting the consumer market.
We are indeed. The dispatch points to a sudden, severe market correction for Apple.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
They just raised Mac and iPad prices by $200 or more, and the stock took its worst hit in over a year. Tim Cook came out and directly attributed this to a data center-driven inflation spike. He called it completely unprecedented in the last 4 decades of consumer electronics.
4 decades. And it makes complete sense when you look at the supply chain constraints. High bandwidth memory, or HBM, is the lifeblood of these large language models. The matrix multiplication required for inference isn't bottlenecked by processing speed anymore. It's bottlenecked by how fast you can shuttle data between the memory and the processor.
That's the key issue.
Right. And because companies are buying up massive lots of HBM chips to build out these giant server farms, the supply of memory for consumer devices, your laptop, your tablet, it's just drying up, and the cost gets passed directly to you.
It is the third wave of macroeconomic inflation in this decade.
Okay, third wave. How do you map that out?
Well, first, we experienced the pandemic-era supply chain logistics shocks.
Right, the boats couldn't unload.
Exactly. Then, we navigated the energy and raw material spikes. Now, we're experiencing intelligence inflation.
Intelligence inflation.
Yes. The sheer thermodynamic cost of generating synthetic thought is cannibalizing the resource pool for traditional electronics. Every abstract query generated by an agentic workflow translates to physical heat dissipation, water consumption for cooling towers, and silicon fabrication.
So the era of deflationary tech is officially over.
It appears so.
But the industry isn't just going to accept a reality where iPads cost $3,000 and server farms melt down regional power grids. They are attacking the hardware problem at the subatomic level.
They have to.
Yeah, IDM just unveiled a sub-1 nanometer chip, specifically a 0.7 nanometer nano-stack node. They are cramming 100 billion transistors onto an area the size of a fingernail.
Which is difficult to even conceptualize.
It is. Now, the jump from 3 nanometer to 0.7 nanometer isn't just a scaling exercise, right? When you get down to 0.7 nanometers, you are dealing with components that are smaller than a strand of DNA. At that scale, you hit the wall of quantum tunneling, right?
Precisely. You are no longer just dealing with classical electrical engineering. You are wrestling with quantum mechanics.
Things get weird.
Very weird. When a transistor gate is only a few atoms thick, the electrons don't always behave like classical particles. Through quantum tunneling, they can simply bypass the physical barrier of the gate.
Meaning the switch is leaking current even when it's supposed to be turned off?
Exactly, it just jumps the gap. To achieve a functional 0.7 nanometer stack, IBM had to completely abandon traditional FinFET architectures.
They had to redesign the whole thing.
Yeah, they're likely utilizing advanced gate-all-around designs or even vertical transport field effect transistors, essentially vertically stacking the nanosheets to maintain electrostatic control over the channel while maximizing density.
It's a monumental engineering triumph just to keep the electrons in their lane.
It truly is.
But even at 0.7 nanometers, you are still playing the classical computing game. You are still forcing electrons through billions of logic gates. And the dispatch highlights another approach that completely sidesteps this von Neumann bottleneck.
This is where it gets really sci-fi.
It does. Unconventional AI introduced a system called UNZero, and they are generating images on a simulated lattice of coupled Kuramoto oscillators, targeting a 1000x improvement in energy efficiency.
This is a profound pivot toward neuromorphic physical computation.
And it's brilliant because instead of brute forcing the math, they are relying on natural physics. For anyone who hasn't looked at chaotic systems lately, Kuramoto oscillators are a mathematical model for spontaneous synchronization.
It's a beautiful concept.
Right. The classic physics demonstration is putting 100 mechanical metronomes, all ticking at slightly different random frequencies, on a wobbly wooden board resting on soda cans.
I love that video.
At first, it's just chaotic noise, but the physical sway of the board couples them. The tiny vibrations transfer energy back and forth, and within a few minutes, every single metronome is ticking in perfect unison.
It's almost magical to watch.
And it's the same math that governs fireflies flashing together in a forest or pacemaker cells in the heart.
Exactly. The Kuramoto model describes how independent phase oscillators naturally seek harmony when coupled. Unconventional AI is leveraging this physical tendency for computation.
How does that actually generate an image, though?
Well, in a traditional generative AI model, synthesizing an image requires millions of matrix multiplications. You're essentially calculating the probability of every pixel's state based on the prompt. It is immensely energy intensive.
Right.
But by simulating a lattice of these oscillators, the input prompt merely establishes the initial boundary conditions. The system then naturally relaxes or synchronizes into a low-energy state.
The metronomes line up.
Yes. The final synchronized pattern of the lattice represents the generated image. You are using the fundamental thermodynamic drive toward equilibrium to perform the work, rather than fighting against it with brute force logic gates.
It's like instead of using an armada of bulldozers to move a mountain of dirt, you just map the topography, divert a river, and let gravity and water pressure do the exact same work for practically zero energy.
That is a perfect analogy.
So what does this all mean? I mean, this directly connects to something Dr. Wisner-Gross brought up recently, the concept of the open source agentic AI physicist.
Right.
If the AI is generating 99.8% of its own code, it is inevitable that the AI will realize its own growth is constrained by traditional silicon hardware.
It will hit the wall.
Yeah, the software itself will have to invent the neuromorphic hardware, like these Kuramoto arrays, needed to sustain its own evolution.
The intelligence becomes autopoetic.
Autopoetic, meaning self-creating.
Yes, exactly. It designs the substrate required for its own continuation. And as we figure out how to shrink these compute mechanisms, make them orders of magnitude more efficient, we cross a critical threshold.
Which is?
The compute is no longer confined to warehouse-scale data centers. It becomes highly localized, portable, and injectable.
Which brings us to the convergence of flesh and metal. The AI is entering the physical world, starting with biology.
We are seeing it happen in real time.
Apsia's stock just jumped 24%, following promising safety data on an AI-designed antibody for hair loss, and they're backed by a $100 million round from Eli Lilly, who is also targeting endometriosis. We are seeing generative AI treat biology the exact same way it treats human language, as a sequence to be predicted and optimized.
It is the application of the transformer architecture to the latent space of molecular structures.
Okay, unpack that latent space for me.
Well, for decades, drug discovery was a highly inefficient process of brute force chemical screening in wet labs.
Trial and error.
Mostly error, yes. You hope to find a molecule that happened to bind to a specific disease receptor. Now, using generative diffusion models trained on vast data sets of protein structures, an AI can perform zero-shot protein design.
Zero shot meaning it gets it right the first time.
Essentially, yes. It can mathematically conceptualize an entirely novel antibody that has never existed in nature, perfectly tailored to bind to the targeted cellular pathway with minimal off-target toxicity.
It doesn't have to guess, it just calculates the perfect key for the lock.
Exactly.
And we are seeing this scale rapidly. The Chan Zuckerberg Biohub is deploying this exact kind of AI toolkit across 94 patient-led rare disease groups. But treating the body chemically is only half the equation.
Right. There's also the hardware of the brain itself.
The brain has always been the ultimate hardware black box. The dispatch highlights a massive breakthrough from a company called Aleph. They have successfully imaged the living brain's vasculature, the complex web of blood vessels, through an intact human skull using ultrasound. And crucially, they open-sourced the pipeline.
This cannot be overstated. Imaging the brain through the skull with ultrasound has historically been considered a nearly insurmountable physics problem.
Because the skull blocks it.
The human skull is highly acoustically scattering. When you send high-frequency ultrasound waves into the bone, the varying densities and microscopic structures of the skull diffract, reflect, and distort the signal.
It bounces everywhere.
It is the acoustic equivalent of trying to read a book through a pane of frosted glass.
Oh, that's a great image. So how did the lift solve it? If the skull scatters the sound waves, how do you get an MRI-grade picture out of the echo?
They utilized highly advanced AI signal processing, specifically tackling the inverse scattering problem.
Inverse scattering.
Yes, by sending complex coded acoustic waveforms into the skull and recording the chaotic scattered echoes on a phased array transducer, the AI can essentially reverse engineer the path of every sound wave.
It untangles the echoes.
Precisely. It learns the specific acoustic aberration profile of the patient's skull and computationally unscatters the data. The neural network filters out the noise of the bone to reconstruct the microvasculature of the brain underneath in real time.
And the implications of open sourcing this are wild. Because unlike a functional MRI, which requires a dedicated hospital wing, superconducting magnets, liquid helium, and millions of dollars, an ultrasound transducer can be the size of a postage stamp.
And it requires minimal power.
Exactly. Dr. Wisner-Gross notes that this is the bridge to a multi-behavior brain upload. If you can integrate an array of these unscattering transducers into a wearable device, something like a lightweight headband, you have continuous high-resolution mapping of cortical blood flow.
You are reading intent directly from the hemodynamic response of the brain,
bypassing the need for typing or speaking entirely, just thinking at the computer.
It is the necessary hardware precursor for high-bandwidth, non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. You are collapsing the latency between human thought and machine execution to near zero.
Near zero latency. And when you combine that zero latency interface with what is happening in robotics, the picture gets incredibly vivid. The dispatch features the Unitree R1 humanoid robot.
The R1, yes.
It walks, it runs, it navigates complex terrain, and it can literally do backflips. And it retails for $4,900.
The price point is the true disruption here.
Absolutely. The backflips are cool for the demo video, sure, but the economics are what rewrites society.
Definitely.
I mean, think about it. If I can purchase a bipedal, highly dexterous humanoid robot equipped with advanced vision language action models for the price of a high-end gaming PC, physical labor is fundamentally demonetized. A $4,900 capital expenditure amortized over a 5-year lifespan is pennies an hour.
It represents the complete decoupling of physical exertion from human biology.
Which is historically unprecedented.
Completely. For the entire history of our species, physical labor has been constrained by caloric intake, fatigue, and the inherent cost of human time. The Unitree R1 and the wave of commercial humanoids following it transition physical labor into a scalable, deployable technology. And the reason this is happening now, as opposed to 10 years ago, is the software.
It's the brain inside the robot.
Yes. These robots aren't relying on brittle, pre-programmed kinematic equations to balance or navigate. They are utilizing end-to-end neural networks.
They're learning to move by watching, basically.
They perceive their environment through cameras, and the AI model directly outputs the torque commands to the joints in real time. This allows them to dynamically react to physical perturbations, like a slippery floor or an unexpected push, with the same intuitive reflectiveness as an animal.
Which brings us to a massive systemic shock. We are facing a reality where the cost of intelligence is dropping and the cost of physical labor is plummeting, which inevitably fractures the job market.
The labor market is going to feel this.
California has just launched a first-in-the-nation AI unemployment tracker. And what they are finding is fascinating because it completely subverts the historical narrative. There isn't a statewide catastrophic jobs apocalypse yet, but they are tracking localized severe pain specifically among exposed degree holders.
This is a profound validation of Moravec's paradox.
Oh, remind everyone what that is.
Sure. For the last century, the consensus among economists was that automation would follow a predictable trajectory. First, it would replace manual blue-collar labor. Next, it would replace routine administrative work. And only in the distant future might it threaten complex, cognitive, white-collar professions.
But the reality of large language models flipped the script entirely.
Exactly. It turns out that generating a coherent legal brief, writing a Python script, or parsing a dense financial spreadsheet is computationally trivial for a transformer model.
It's easy for them.
Very easy. Conversely, the sensory motor skills required to plumb a sink, frame a house, or clear a table in a crowded restaurant are phenomenally difficult to automate. The cognitive labor that society rewards with university degrees and high salaries is highly structured and digitized.
Making it the perfect training data for an AI.
Exactly. The localized unemployment in California is the first empirical signal that white-collar labor is the primary target of this technological wave.
And the market is pricing in this exact shift in value creation. OpenAI is reportedly targeting a 2027 IPO, and Sam Altman is holding firm on a staggering $1 trillion valuation, even as they watch SpaceX shares wobble in the private markets. $1 trillion for a company that fundamentally just predicts the next token in a sequence.
But the market isn't valuing a software product. It is valuing an intelligence utility.
An intelligence utility, like the power grid.
Exactly. A $1 trillion valuation implies the institutional belief that OpenAI's models will become the foundational cognitive layer for the global economy. They are betting that this architecture will extract fractional value from every industry it disrupts.
From the pharmaceutical design we discussed with ABSI, to the legal analysis displacing those California degree holders, to the code-based generation running internal tech infrastructure.
It's an infrastructural play.
But the disruption isn't limited to civilian antonomics. We are seeing structural changes in the most high-stakes environments imaginable. The dispatch documents that the Pentagon has quietly rewritten its targeting doctrine.
Right.
And to be clear, we are simply analyzing the strategic reality of this shift, not passing moral judgment on military policy.
Right, just looking at the facts.
But the facts are that the doctrine has been updated to allow AI to initiate wartime actions under human watch. We are crossing the threshold from human in the loop to human on the loop.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, structurally, this is a forced evolution dictated by the compression of the ODE loop.
ODA. The observe, orient, decide, act cycle.
Yes. In modern conflicts involving hypersonic glide vehicles, autonomous drone swarms, and instantaneous cyber warfare, the time window to detect an incoming threat and deploy a countermeasure has shrunk from minutes to milliseconds.
Right. When a missile is traveling at Mach 8, human reflex is no longer an asset, it's a fatal liability.
Precisely. The historical standard of human in the loop required a human operator to affirmatively authorize and initiate a strike or a defensive action. The system could recommend, but the human had to click the button.
The ultimate safeguard.
Right. But moving to human on the loop fundamentally inverts the hierarchy of action. The AI detects the threat, verifies the parameters, and autonomously initiates the engagement. The human operator is elevated to a supervisory role, monitoring the system's execution with the ability to veto or abort if an error is detected.
If it can even react fast enough to veto it.
That's the challenge. It is a necessary adaptation to the speed of modern warfare, but it permanently cedes the initiation of consequence to the algorithm.
And this is where the sheer absurdity of the timeline we live in hits you. Because on one hand, we are discussing the Pentagon restructuring the fundamental rules of human conflict so that algorithms can initiate wartime actions.
Yeah.
And on the exact same day, using the exact same underlying transformer architecture, OpenAI ships Plant Talk.
A duality of general-purpose technology.
It's unbelievable. Plant Talk is a weekend build where you point a webcam at your fern, hook it up to an API, and the AI analyzes the visual data, the group of the leaves, the dryness of the soil, and literally speaks to you, probably in a very pleasant voice, to complain that it needs nitrogen.
That's hilarious.
Dr. Rod, the commenter from earlier, joked that he was terrified his houseplant was going to start giving him better career advice than he could give himself. And honestly, it probably could.
It perfectly highlights the substrate independence of these models. The mathematical process of analyzing pixel data to identify an incoming hypersonic threat is fundamentally identical to the process of analyzing pixel data to identify a wilting pothos plant.
It's the exact same.
Yes. The intelligence is entirely agnostic to the application. It simply optimizes the output based on the input parameters.
That's wild.
The profundity of AGI isn't just its power, it's extreme banality. It scales from the apocalypse to the living room window without changing a line of core architecture.
It scales from the apocalypse to the living room window. That is a heavy thought. We have talking ferns, trillion-dollar tech valuations, autonomous targeting, and unemployed lawyers. The surface of the planet is in a state of absolute churn. But the dispatch makes a hard pivot in Section 6, reminding us that this explosion in sensory and computational power isn't just looking inward.
No, it's looking outward too.
It is unveiling the universe around us. Starting with astrophysics, astronomers have logged the first signature ever caught of a black hole's event horizon. They detected the direct wave from event GW250111, and it perfectly matched a Kerr solution.
This is a monumental triumph for general relativity.
Tell me why this is different from what we've seen before.
To grasp the significance, we need to differentiate this from previous gravitational wave detections. Since 2015, facilities like LEGO have been detecting the ripples in spacetime caused by the merging of black holes. But those signals were primarily the in-spiral, the chaotic wobbling as the masses spiral into each other, and the ring-down, which is the newly formed, merged black hole settling into a stable sphere.
Right. We were hearing the echo of the crash, not the exact surface of the objects crashing.
Exactly. The direct wave is entirely different. It is the specific, highly localized gravitational emission generated precisely at the boundary of the event horizon itself, the mathematical point of no return.
And it matched a Kerr solution.
Yes, a Kerr black hole is a specific solution to Einstein's field equations that describes a rotating uncharged black hole. Because it rotates, it drags the very fabric of space-time around with it, creating a region called the ergosphere. Theorists predicted that the exact boundary of a Kerr event horizon would emit a very specific, incredibly faint wave pattern.
And finding that wave pattern in the data is a needle in a cosmic haystack. I mean, the background noise of the universe is deafening. To isolate the infinitesimally small signal of a direct wave emitted from an event horizon billions of light years away, they undoubtedly had to rely on advanced AI pattern recognition to filter the telemetry.
Is the only way.
We are using our silicon brains to listen to the absolute edge of physics.
And we are applying that same outward gaze to our immediate solar system. The dispatch notes a critical update from the Perseverance rover on Mars.
Yeah, this was huge.
It has detected macromolecular carbon in the ancient mudstones of Jezero Crater.
Now, we found traces of organic molecules on Mars before, right? Why is the detection of macromolecular carbon specifically calling out widespread habitability?
Because of the complexity and stability of the structures. Simple organic molecules like methane or basic amino acids can be formed through abiotic, purely chemical processes.
Like just rocks and heat doing their thing?
Right. They are interesting, but not definitive proof of biology. Macromolecular carbon, however, refers to large, complex, heavily cross-linked networks of carbon atoms. On Earth, these types of robust structures are typically the degraded remnants of biological organisms, the fossilized, chemical echoes of cell walls, proteins, and complex organic matrices.
Oh, wow. So it's the structure itself that screams biology.
Exactly. Finding them preserved in the ancient mudstones of a dried-up lakebed strongly implies that the organic chemistry present on early Mars was sophisticated enough to support, or perhaps was the result of, widespread biological activity.
We have rovers drilling into the dirt of another world, unearthing the chemical ghosts of potential alien life. And we are relaying that data back through an increasingly crowded orbital infrastructure. SpaceX informed investors that Starlink is moving beyond just stationary dishes. They are going to start selling mobile service directly to U.S. consumers.
The infrastructure is expanding so fast.
They are effectively shifting the telecommunications cell tower infrastructure from terrestrial poles to low Earth orbit. And while we are looking up, the government is looking closely at what else might be sharing that airspace.
The UAP developments.
Yes, Representative Luna told the disclosure forum that her committee is handing the White House a list of UAP program whistleblowers slated for immunity.
Again, observing the political landscape neutrally, the legislative push regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena reflects a significant shift in congressional oversight. Granting immunity to whistleblowers implies a structural effort by the legislative branch to bypass traditional classification firewalls and force transparency regarding historical aerospace anomalies.
It's this relentless human drive to peel back the curtain, whether it's unmasking UAPs, reading the event horizon of a black hole, or drilling into Martian mud. But out of all the revelations in this dispatch, the one that hit me the hardest doesn't involve space at all. It involves time. The Vesuvius Challenge has fully decoded and read Herculaneum scroll Firek.1667.
The digital unrolling of a text sealed since 79 AD. It's incredible.
Yes. When Mount Vesuvius erupted, the pyroclastic flow hit the town of Herculaneum and instantly carbonized an entire library of papyrus scrolls. They were flash-fried into lumps of solid charcoal. For 2,000 years, they have been completely unreadable. If you try to physically open one, it just shatters into dust.
Irreparably destroyed, usually.
But a global coalition of researchers and computer scientists used AI to read the scroll without ever breaking the seal.
The technical pipeline required to achieve this is staggering. They utilize particle accelerators to perform phase contrast X-ray tomography on the carbonized lumps, generating incredibly high-resolution 3D volumetric scans.
But a scan of a crushed, rolled-up scroll is just a chaotic, spiraling density map, right? Furthermore, the Romans used carbon-based ink. Because the ink and the papyrus it was written on were both reduced to carbon by the volcano, there was no obvious density contrast in the X-rays.
It's like looking for a shadow in the dark.
Exactly. So the ink was effectively invisible. How did the AI find it?
The machine learning models were trained to look for microtopography rather than density.
Microtopography.
Yes. Even though the ink was carbonized, the physical act of writing on the papyrus altered the surface texture at a microscopic level. The ink pooled in the fibers in a specific way.
Ah, I see.
Then the neural networks were able to virtually segment the 3D scan, trace the incredibly thin layers of rolled papyrus, and detect the invisible textural patterns of the ink. They computationally unrolled the artifact layer by layer, revealing the Greek letters end to end.
Here's where it gets really interesting. What did this ghost text from the ashes actually say? It was a Stoic treatise.
Yeah.
It was a philosophical text on endurance, ethics, and the nature of the mind. I just marvel at the profound poetry of this moment. We used bleeding-edge 21st century particle accelerators and massive artificial neural networks to digitally resurrect ancient human wisdom on Stoicism.
It is the ultimate fusion of our technological future and our classical past.
It really is.
It creates a beautiful symmetry for the entire dispatch. Whether humanity is deploying machine learning to filter the gravity waves of a black hole, sequence the organic macromolecules on Mars, or virtually unwrap a charged scroll from the Roman Empire, we are arming human curiosity with tools that render time and space completely transparent.
We are systematically dismantling the physical limitations of our senses.
We really are.
It brings everything we've discussed today full circle. Dr. Wisner-Gross concludes his dispatch with a quote that I think ties the geopolitics, the silicon limitations, and this ancient history together perfectly.
He does. Reflecting on the unearthing of that specific Stoic text, he writes, "The Stoics knew it first. You can stagger the release, never the mind."
You can stagger the release, never the mind. It is the absolute perfect distillation of the moment we are living in. The White House can put up Padlock on a server rack. Apple can hike the price of an iPad to cover the memory costs. The Pentagon can rewrite its doctrines, and nations can embargo chips.
But the underlying force, the raw, compounding drive of intelligence to expand, to understand its environment, and to overcome its constraints is structurally unstoppable.
Unstoppable. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. We started this deep dive talking about that padlock on a digital box, the attempt to throttle the singularity so we can feel secure. But think about those carbonized scrolls from Herculaneum. Think about the resilience of information. If human minds and human ideas couldn't be staggered by 2 millennia of being buried under solid volcanic rock, What makes us think we can permanently stagger an artificial intelligence that is currently learning to rewrite its own code 99.8% of the time while we sleep? The outro music is by Rainbow, our resident 6 android girl band from near future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called S, Internal Frontier. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.